Hey everybody, this is Sonya from Sonya's Quilts and Embroidery, and today I'm going to show you how to take this pile of men's shirts and prepare them and how to cut out squares for a patchwork quilt. Now, there are several things that I've learned over the years of doing this, and it was trial and error, and sometimes I'd do stuff and I'd feel so dumb and I'd be like, you know, but when you do a memory quilt, there are so many things you have to take into consideration. First of all, number one consideration is the fact that these were made to wear as clothing, not to be cut up into quilt squares. That's a major thing, because when they were cut out for a, you know, a shirt or whatever. And then when you use new fabrics, off the boat fabrics, it's easier to cut them square than it is after they've been made into a shirt. So, we're not going to use any kind of interface or anything on these because they're already woven. There's a little bit of stretch to flannel. A lot of people don't know that, but the flannel does have some stretch to it. Not much, easy to control. But yeah, we're going to take all these shirts here, and it's just, and I've already made a memory quilt out of these shirts. And so some of them have got the fronts cut like this one. I've already cut a large square. Well, that's the sleeve. I've already cut a large square out of the front, and not in the back, but the front. This lady sent 8 shirts, and I like to have 12 squares for at least 12 squares for a full size. So I had to use 4 of them twice. So this one though is a good one to get started on. We're gonna lay all of these aside, and let me show you where the good fabric is for cutting out a memory quilt out of a man's shirt. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the cuff off of the sleeve and get rid of all those gathers. See, there's gathering. See how it's pleated and gathered around the cuff here. We're gonna get rid of that. Throw that aside. And let's unbutton this shirt. And then we're going to take it and we're going to lay it like this, and we're going to cut the sleeve off right here at this seam where it goes into the body of the shirt. All right, let's lay that piece aside. And then we're going to open the sleeve up. Right down the inside seam. There's only one seam on a shirt, but right down the underseam of the sleeve. Then we're going to take, now another thing to remember when you try to decide, there's a few things you need to remember when you're trying to decide what size square you want to use. Now, there's not a whole lot of usable fabric on a shirt. Now, if you had the whole shirt, you got, you know, of course you can make more squares. But you have to remember there's the cuffs, there is the collar, there's the placket down the front if you're making a patchwork. Now, the buttons down the front, I use that on a big memory quilt, and there will be no fronts on these shirts. But there's a lot of things to consider. Then you have this pleat, this opening here at the bottom of the sleeve, and we had to cut around that. And there's just a lot of things. Another thing you have to consider when you're cutting, you need to cut your squares or your rectangles or whatever you want to do as big as you can, because for every for a 5-inch square that I'm going to cut this into, you will lose 1 inch all the way around, because you have a 1/4 inch seam. You'll be a 1/4 inch seam on all 4 sides of the square, so you're automatically losing, you're naturally losing 1 inch. So your square will go down from a 5x5 to a 4x4. So if you can make your square 6 inches by 6 inches, it'll go down to a 5-inch. So you're losing 1 inch for every size square that you want to do. So if you did a 3x3-inch square, which would be a beautiful quilt, but it's going to end up being 2x2. So you lose a lot with the seam. So the least amount of seams that you can make is better. And what I mean by that is, say you did well, say this one, let's fold this in half here. I'm going to iron it, but just for showing you, this one I would be able to get, cutting it that way, only get 4. Cutting it this way, I probably get 5. So that's 5 5-inch squares, and it's actually going to be 4 4-inch squares, or 5 4-inch squares. So, you know, where it would be, if you sewed them end to end to end, and it would be, start out at 25 inches, I sewed them end to end to end, you're going to get that, go down to, there'll be 4 seams at 1/2 inch. You're losing, excuse me, you're losing 2 inches by sewing them end to end to end. So your squares will go down from 25 to 23 inches after you add the seams. Okay, so preparing the sleeve here. And this one, you cannot tell which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side. Some things you can. Most men's shirts you cannot. I'm going to get my handy dandy iron here. One day when I become a professional, I'm going to buy me a professional iron. But for right now, got the old reliable. My son decided to buy his little boys a Chihuahua for Christmas a couple of Christmases ago. And they had it sitting out there under the tree when they woke up. And they went running into their bedroom. Now, my grandchildren are from Honduras. My son went over there and got them. They actually belong to my oldest son. And my youngest son and his wife went and got them in Honduras and brought them home and are loving on them and have adopted them. And anyway, they bought them a Chihuahua for Christmas. And that Christmas morning, it was their second Christmas morning. They went running in the bedroom and said, get up, there's a chicken in the living room. But the dog was untrainable. Of course, they're both gone all day working. The kids were at school and whatever. And the dog, he brought it to me and said, Mama, will you please try to train this dog? And I said, well, if, you know, whatever time I have, I'll try. Dog was impossible to train. And in the meantime, it was a chewer. And it chewed my iron cord half in 2. I lost 2 phone charger cords. But anyway, this has got an extension cord hooked to it and taped together. So I've got an extra long, that's the advantage of it. I have an extra long ironing cord. But anyway, get that starched kind of good and stretched out there and kind of stiff, and get all the starch dried up on it. And then we're going to fold it in half. And then we're going to fold it over this way so that we'll know to cut around that placket. Let me pull it on down here so that I've got 4 layers. I can actually put it down a little further. So I've got 4 layers that my square will fit. And we'll take our Sharpie. I don't like to use a razor cutter on this because sometimes with a razor cutter you have to cut a little beyond the point of stopping just to get the corner cut good, cut well, and you will mess up the next square. Then after you get your square cut, put a little pin in it, or a couple little pins. This is about the only time I ever use pins in sewing. And got my big, humongous pin cushion. This has been I cannot tell y'all how handy it has been. You can't lose this thing. It sticks up above everything on the cutting table. It sticks up above everything on the embroidery table. You cannot lose this giant pin cushion. I mean, it's just been wonderful. Wonderful. And got a video on it. I don't really like the video. I may redo that video. But this has been just great. I love it. We're going to pin it a couple, because the reason we're pinning it is so while you're cutting and nothing shifts. Because you're going to get 4 squares. These, of course, are not as accurate as they would be with a razor, with a rotary cutter, but they'll be okay. I mean, I'm making a throw, and your hand cutting may be more accurate than mine, but pinning really helps to keep everything together and keeps it from shifting around. There we have 4 squares. And if you see right here, I made a mistake. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can see it if I lay it here. I didn't check to see if all the fabric came over. So it's a little short there. But just keep those, I'm going to keep those together. And let's see if we can find another place to get another square. Maybe only able to get just one, because when I fold it in half, that's not big enough. We might, and a lot of times too, by cutting it this way, you can kind of fit things a little easier. So I'm going to cut one, I'm going to draw one here. I'm so sad. I had to carry my embroidery machine. My big embroidery, see, I can get 2 now. Had to take my big embroidery machine into the shop today. It rebuked on me this morning. It was giving me all kinds of messages, and basically I'm not going to run until you take me and get me serviced. So that's what I had to do. I'm able to get 3 by placing them this way. And because this is just a single layer here, we're not going to use any pins. And I know you probably can't see those marks, but trust me, they're there. And you'll be able to see your marks. I cut most of my patterns when I make up a pattern. Like I did, I just cut a 5-inch square out of poster board. Poster board don't seem like it's what it was when I was in school. When I was in school, it was a pretty stiff piece of paper, or a stiff piece of board to do your whatever your school project was on it. But now, that's the premium, and the other that's like $3 for $1, they're now a little bit thicker than paper. Not much. They used to have like a shiny side on one side and a dull side on the other, but now the cheap one is dull on both sides. Let's see, where is my mark? Right here. Two squares there, and we'll get another one right here. My machine, if they know that you use your machine, you know, in your business, you can take it down there and they will get on it real quick, and they'll have it for you the next day. So I'll have to go back to Huntsville tomorrow to pick it up. And a cleaning and a service job on a machine like that is $250. And when I left the store, it looked like an autopsy. There was, all the skin was off the machine, and all it was the inner workings of it. All the pretty part was gone, and it looked like an autopsy. All right, now we have, let me cut this other sleeve off just to get down to the part I want to get down to. Now, I've already contacted this customer and told her that since I've already made one quilt out of the shirts, that I will have to add my own fabric to her fabric in order to get the throw that she wanted for her son. This, I believe these were her son's daddy's clothes, and he got killed in a car wreck a couple of years ago or something. And she had a hard time getting rid of them and sending them to me, but she finally did. And so here we are. This is the back of the shirt, this is the collar, and this is the usually double layer of fabric there, and then there's this line here. And this line has pleats on it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got pleats on it. So we're going to cut, just like the cuff, we're going to cut right down below that seam and clip those pleats to where they will lay flat. Get rid of that. And then unbutton the 2 buttons that are left on the front. And we have a nice big piece of fabric, but I don't want any seams. When you start crossing over seams, it makes for a wonky square, and I don't like wonky squares, so I'm going to cut right down the seam. This separates the back of the shirt from the front of the shirt. And this is the piece from the front. And I could probably get about 3 squares out of that. And I can get, this is the other side of the front. And I can get about 3 pieces out of that. I don't know if I can get a piece. Yeah, I can get another piece right there. But I'm going to work on the back first. This is the back of the shirt. If you want to, you can cut off the buttons that are left. Here's 2 spare buttons. They sew on the inside of this shirt. So if one falls off, you got a spare. Put those somewhere. So if you have most men's shirt buttons are alike. And you can replace have you a surplus of buttons. So when one falls off, you will have a spare. Or if it doesn't match, you can take one off the bottom of the shirt, put it up on the top where you need to replace it, and then put one of your spares at the bottom where the shirt tucks in, and nobody will ever be the wiser. All right, let's get this good and sprayed. And I like to use this Faultless. This is the fresh scent, original fresh scent, and I thought it had another feature to it, but undoubtedly it don't. It doesn't say. It seemed like there was one that when it's still wet, your iron kind of sticks to it, but it's starting to dry now. Let's get up here to where these pleats were and get those. I'm making a mess because this is not dry yet. Making wrinkles that that I didn't have. All the way to the other side. Okay, now let's fold this and see how many times you can fold it to get maximum. Less cuts and more blocks. Fold it in half. And you can kind of see when it's straight by looking at the lines in the shirt. And then let's fold it in half again. All right. Draw off some more. Now you could actually cut rectangles, and you could probably, cut bigger blocks, and it all depends. But if you get into a bigger block, then sometimes the sleeves cannot accommodate a large block pattern. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration when you do a quilt made out of something else that was not intended for a quilt. Okay, that will be 12 squares there, and then after I get these cut, I'll lay my pattern out to see where I can maybe find another one. Alright, so you kind of get the gist of what I'm doing here. And then after you get your squares cut out, you can do, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a trip around the world. And a trip around, when I get ready to sew this up, and it'll be a couple of days probably before I ever get them all cut out and ready to sew together. I'm probably gonna do a trip around the world, and I will show you how to do that. And it's just a really good design to do with squares. But I feel lonesome today. Got my old buddy, the 6 needle embroidery machine's gone, and it'll be back tomorrow. But I hate to take that thing to Huntsville and leave it so bad. And I hate to pick it up tomorrow and pay them $250. But it will be like a brand new machine. They will clean it inside and out. It will be, I mean, it will be like a brand new machine when I pick it up. If they call me and say, it needs a $350 part and your warranty is run out, then I will cry. But I have to have it. So, but anyway, thank you so much for joining me on how to cut up button-up shirts into squares for Patchwork Memory Quilt. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.